Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Chief Petty Officer Darren Tobler. We warmly welcome the family of Acting Sergeant Bruce Gustav Kay, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Bruce Gustav Kay. Bruce Kay was born on the 25th of October 1913 in Rosebery, a mining town on the west coast of Tasmania. His father was London-born Frederick Critcheldorf, who had served as a captain with the 6th Battalion during the First World War, seeing action on Gallipoli and the Western Front. Bruce's mother, Phoebe, died on the 7th of August 1919, when Bruce was just 5 years old. His father changed his last name to Kay and later remarried and had more children. Bruce Kay enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force on the 10th of June 1940. By then, he had been in the cadets for a year and a half and was working as a concrete hand. After a period of training, on the 15th of July 1940, Kay was posted to the newly established 2nd 21st Battalion, which had formed in central Victoria as part of the 23rd Brigade of the 8th Division. Kay showed leadership abilities at an early stage and by mid-August had been promoted to Lance Corporal. The 2nd 21st Battalion began arriving in Darwin in April 1941 and spent the next 9 months training on garrison duties. Amenities were isolated and uncomfortable, and preparations were hampered through a lack of equipment. With his experience in concreting, Kay worked on various facilities at the camp, including the ablutions blocks. He continued to rise through the ranks, being promoted to Acting Corporal January 1941, Acting Lance Sergeant in November 1941, and Acting Sergeant in January 1942. Following the Japanese invasion of Malaya in early December 1941, the battalion prepared to move, arriving on Ambon in mid-December as part of Gulf Force. Gulf Force consisted of the 2nd 21st Battalion, supported by anti-tank artillery, engineers and other supporting arms with a combined strength of 1,100 men. Netherlands East Indies forces on the island numbered some 2,600 men, including several companies of Indonesian troops and Dutch coastal artillery. These troops were tasked with defending the Bay of Ambon and the airfields at Lahar and Liang. With such a small force, Gulf Force's commanding officer believed that Ambon could not be defended, and he urgently requested reinforcement. He was relieved of his command and replaced by Lieutenant Colonel John Scott in mid-January 1942. Just prior to the Japanese landings, Scott altered the location of many of his defensive positions, which resulted in the battalion being even less prepared to repel the invasion. Japanese landing forces began arriving at Ambon on the 30th of January. By the following afternoon, the Dutch forces had surrendered. Outnumbered and lacking air or naval support, the 2nd 21st Battalion was unable to prevent the advance and was pushed to the far west of the peninsula. Around 150 Australian soldiers and some Indonesians and Dutch were captured, and many were later massacred following a major Japanese offensive in early February. The remainder of the battalion surrendered the following day and was interned in their former barracks. The survivors went into captivity as prisoners of war for the remainder of the conflict. Their conditions were poor, and they suffered the highest death rate of any group of Australian prisoners of war during the Second World War. Bruce Kay, however, would be spared of the suffering of the prisoners of war. He was killed in action at a lookout post on Mount Nonna on Ambon on the 2nd of February 1942. Today he is commemorated at Ambon Memorial, along with around 440 casualties from the Second World War. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Bruce Gustav Kay, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozier or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.